Hello everyone and welcome to All This Tech. I created this channel because I enjoy watching people analyze, take apart, and generally mess around with old hardware, especially computers. The retro tech community has to be one of the most pleasant corners of the internet, and I would like to take up a more active role in it and share some of my own adventures here. For this inaugural episode, I have something quite special, and I hope you enjoy it. When I first laid eyes on the Unisys 325 SL with its bare exterior, and having never heard of the brand Unisys before, I thought for sure that this thing was just a simple word processor. I figured that if it has a keyboard, a screen, and no I/O, it must be a word processor or something basic like that. But upon closer inspection, I began to realize how far off I was. This is a proper 640 by 480 monochrome display. This is a 3.5-inch high-density floppy drive. This is a dual PCMCIA card slot, inside of which there's a modem. And hidden behind this cover is all of the I/O I didn't see at first, which includes BGA, printer, serial, and PS2 ports, plus an expansion port for a docking station, which, going by some of the settings in the BIOS, must have had some very interesting features. Furthermore, this little compartment here contains a proper 120MB hard drive, and this compartment here gives you access to the RAM and a math coprocessor slot. And look at this, it comes with this tiny removable trackball. It attaches to the front of the machine, connecting to a port behind a little latch. This whole thing is just delightful. It's a shame that this particular unit, which I was borrowing from a friend, seems to have been quite abused by the years. Trying to research this machine was a lot harder than I expected. I thought that I would just Google the model name and be off to the races, but no, I had to go digging. And what did I find? eBay listings, a very bare computer history museum entry, and various forum posts of people asking for help identifying this thing. I also found almost identical machines under different brands like DEC and AST, which makes me think they were all made following the same OEM design. Oh, and I noticed that in the BIOS for my device, there are mentions of the name PowerExec, which is what the AST branded model is called. Interesting stuff, and there's more to it for sure, but I won't be digging any deeper at the moment. Playing around with the machine, but before I started filming unfortunately, I managed to boot MS-DOS from floppies and install it on the awfully sounding hard drive. It loaded just fine, and I even got to play some Prince of Persia. But when I tried to install Windows 3.11, the hard drive gave up and stopped working entirely, and shortly the floppy drive followed, so to my immense disappointment I didn't get to try out the tiny trackball. I tried to replace the hard drive with some other ones I had lying around, and they got detected, but the system couldn't seem to read or write data to them. I suspect this machine only works with this specific model of drive, or I'm missing a setting or a jumper that needs to be configured. The floppy drive probably needed a new belt or just a little bit of love, but I didn't get the chance to try fixing it. Anyway, even without booting an OS, there's a couple of cool things that I can show off about how this laptop works. First, the BIOS configuration can be accessed at any time without restarting, which is very unusual to me. You can bring up a battery gauge in the same way. Of course, my battery is long dead. Also, the built-in display can be inverted at any time, which I presume was a feature implemented to provide a more pleasant experience when reading lots of text on this screen. Lastly, the VGA port seems to work perfectly, and it even has a shortcut key to switch between the built-in monitor and the external one. Without much more to see on the outside, let's take a look inside. There's a lot in here that looks strange to me because I'm not super familiar with laptops of this era. For example, the hard drive. It's inside this caddy that can be easily ejected without tools. Inside the caddy there's a 120MB Quantum Go drive. It has a standard laptop IDE connector adapted through a short ribbon cable to a connector on the caddy. A couple of screws in the base of the unit release the keyboard, under which you can find the floppy drive and the small board with the trackball connector, a couple of LEDs, and a CR2032 battery. At first I thought this must be the CMOS battery, but later on I found a much more era-appropriate nickel-cadmium battery located in a more logical place in the motherboard, so absolutely no idea what this is for. Anyway, to continue the teardown, you need to remove a couple of screws here and then remove the entire screen, which will give you access to the last two screws holding this thing together. But before you can take the screen off completely, you need to remove the installed RAM module. Here's a closer look at this thing. It features this dual connector interface, which I've never seen before. This form factor doesn't seem to be a standard, and the only information I can find about it is on listings of people selling similar modules online. I believe this is a 4 MB module. Under the RAM is the screen connector, which you need to unscrew to disconnect. With the screen out of the way, you can disconnect the ribbon from the power switch and screen controls and remove this entire cover. As you can see, the board that holds all of this stuff is actually separated from the main board and communicates using these two connectors. I find this design very pleasing. Under this board we get to see the rest of the computer. Here we have the processor, which I believe is a 8386 SL, probably running at 20 MHz. And here's a Western Digital video controller with 512 KB of DRAM. No audio chip to be found as far as I can tell. And I guess that's all I can say about this computer for now. It's a shame I didn't get to play more with it before it gave up the ghost. If you happen to know anything interesting about this machine that I'm missing or got completely wrong, please do leave a comment below. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick look at what I think is a rather interesting and delightful piece of tech. So have a nice one and see you next time.